And we're back.
And we're back.
We're
Welcome back,
back.
everybody. We're back in black.
Again,
I-
we're gonna wear
again,
that joke out.
we've already worn that joke out. I'm going to pull up the lyrics for Back in Black so that I can read them off whenever we say that.
Oh no. Do
We're
like
gonna need more
a live reading.
Yeah, a dramatic reading of Back
Dramatic
in Black
reading
by
of AC/DC's Back in Black.
Yo, that's what we should do for another podcast. Is we should do a
Yo.
dramatic, like fan fiction reading, like horrible fan fiction reading.
Horrible fanfics. Oh
That
no.
was my. Do you know My Immortal?
I unfortunately do. I refuse to read it, but I have heard snippets of it, and it is awful.
That would be. We gotta find some saucy. If
Oh no.
to all of our 14 subscribers, by the way, thank you for subscribing.
Thank you.
And also, if you have any fan fiction requests that you would like Wolfie to read dramatically, please let
Oh no.
me know in the comments.
This would be fun. That could be fun, yeah.
But today, what we're talking about, we're not talking about fan fiction. We're talking about
Well,
science.
it's fiction, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so science fiction in general, at least the way I like to think of it, is humans writing fan fiction about themselves.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because
it's a lot of it is predicting our own future, which, I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
Or you could do what Star Wars did and just be like, nope, this is a completely different galaxy, far, far away, a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with Earth.
You know, that is an interesting thing. Everybody's like, oh, it's super science fiction, sci-fi. No, this is actually like, it starts out a long time ago.
Yeah, just really far away.
Like, it could have happened at the same time that everything in Middle Earth was happening, you know? I mean, you know?
Could have happened at the same time that Gladiator was happening.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Star Wars, right?
Star Wars.
Star Wars is a video game franchise primarily.
Yeah. Yeah, they have Lego games about Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars is a Star Wars is a video game franchise created by Lego.
Created by Lego, sponsored by Bethesda, and brought to life by Sega Entertainment.
So, when I was a kid, I had never seen Star Wars, not even the original movies, and I'm not completely sure why. I don't know whether or not it was just my parents never let us watch it, or like we just never had a reason to. But that was always my like go-to bingo. I don't know. People would be like, "Oh my, you've never seen Star Wars before? Like what?" And people would freak
like
out.
Like a social taboo.
Yeah, well, I guess less of a taboo.
It?
More of just like a fascination. And I mean, I get that a lot nowadays. People would be like, "Whoa, you haven't seen, X anime or played Y video game or whatever." Yeah. But Star Wars was like a real big sticking point for people, and I think it was because, I mean, aside from the fact that it's just really popular, like everyone and their dad has seen Star Wars, because at least the first three movies, like they came out a while ago, but they're timeless. Like they span over, it's something that little Timmy could watch and have a lot of fun with, and it's something that your dad could watch and be nostalgic for, and your granddad could watch and be like, "Oh, I was there."
Right. And for context, the way Star Wars is set up in the movies is you have episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, the OGs.
Yeah, the OGs. Then you have 1, 2, and 3, which were made in the 90s, and they were prequels.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, we have the Disney introductions of 7, 8, and 9, which... Oh, man. Listen, I could go on a huge rant about that. Number 7 was not bad because we hadn't had Star Wars in a long time, and they were trying something new. And it was working okay, however, it was a little bit campy in its fan service. Like, look, do you remember this from the old Star Wars?
Oh, right. Yeah, a little bit.
And then they leaned into that real heavy, and then it just got really terrible. But
when was the first time that you saw Star Wars, like anything Star Wars?
So the first time I saw Star Wars, so I did not actually watch it as a kid. Well, if you classify like 15 years old as a kid, that was about the first time I watched it. Right. So my parents were heavily religious, so there was like no sci-fi movies, nothing like that. Which is hilarious because my dad loves Star Trek.
I don't know how that translates. I don't know how that translates.
Yeah, my dad loves Star Trek, and I watched that a ton with him. But for some reason, Star Wars was too based around magic.
Oh, because of the Force.
Yeah, because of the Force and all that. And like we
That
had a conversation before even starting these movies, like the Force isn't real, and I'm like, I know it's a movie, like I don't.
Dad, I'm
But
15. I know.
right, but it was still maybe it was a little bit before. I think it was a few years earlier, but anyways, yeah, they were really really good movies. I remember we watched the original episode 4 of A New Hope.
Oh, the
Um,
one where Jabba the Hutt was a just a dude.
not that far back.
Okay.
The first remake that they did, where they actually made him an actual slug,
A big slug
um,
monster.
but it didn't have the extra scenes of like the weird concert. I don't even know. I don't. Ugh, Jesus.
Right. Oh man, I forgot about that. It's
Yeah,
been a
because
while.
they did 2 different remakes of that movie,
Yeah.
with like extended scenes, and it was terrible. The second remake, so, ooh, but no, the movies were really good, and I remember going through them, and I already knew most of the story just because I was a kid and I had
How could you
friends.
not? Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say how could you not?
yeah, like Star Wars was huge. Um, but yeah, my first big foray, even before we watched the movies, was we had a Lego Star Wars. I think it was Lego Star Wars 2 on the PlayStation 2. Oh my god, Lego Star
Uh,
Wars games were awesome.
Lego Star Wars is my first introduction to Star Wars at all, and I don't remember which. I mean, this is all very cloudy for me because I was very young. But I was playing Lego Star Wars on some console. I think it was. Was it on the Xbox 360? Was Lego Star Wars on the Xbox 360? Because
They had the Saga edition or whatever it
I
was that mixed both
believe,
the first and second.
I believe we were playing on 360. And I mean, I didn't know what was going on because I had no idea. I knew that it was something to do with Star Wars because the title was there,
Hmm.
but that was it.
Right.
Uh, when I was about 16, I think I pirated a crap ton of the Star Wars movies. Oh yeah, confession by the way. Yeah, I
How dare
pirated
you?
movies when I was a teenager.
How dare you?
You wouldn't download a Star Destroyer. Um, no, but I so um, and I watched it in order of movies 1 to 3 first. I watched the
Hmm.
prequels first, so I watched it in continuity order instead of like when the movies came out.
Sure.
And I was super confused when so on the one hand, if you watch the story that way, like I mean you kind of already know the big twist of movie 4 because you know about Anakin Skywalker, like you've watched him
The
since he was
twist
a
is
kid.
actually I think in 5, wasn't it?
Was it in 5? It might
They
have.
were in Cloud
Oh,
City in 5.
you're right. It was in 5. Dang, that just goes to show how long ago it's been. So, yeah, I know in 5, but like you already knew that. Like, I already know Luke and Leia are siblings. I know who their mom was. I know who we get to
Right.
watch Anakin, but the story is like it's because Luke doesn't know, and so the entire time you're watching
Through
movie
Luke's eyes.
4 and 5, you're like, whoa, like he doesn't know, like this is gonna mess him up, and then it happened in movie 5, and I was like, yeah, like, so it was a different kind of satisfaction instead of like a plot twist of like, oh my god, it was more of like a,
He
oh,
found out.
he finally
Yeah.
said it, and he did the whole
He said the
no,
line. He said
yeah.
the line.
But I was very confused when I was watching, because I watched episode 3 and then I watched episode 4, and
Hmm.
the production quality. Um,
Dropped dramatically.
like I don't want to be too harsh, but oh man, the OG Star Wars, because I watched the very first, like
Yeah.
when Jabba the Hutt was just
When
a
it was
guy.
just a dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was very confused. But yeah, so the production quality was, ye olden production quality. That was a lot of fun. And then after I watched that Star Wars, I kind of shelved the entire series
Hmm.
because I watched Star Wars. Like, yay, all my friends
I
can get
did
all
it.
the way up off of my
Yeah.
back about that. Um, and then I don't know what it was. It must have been relatively recently because my friends got me into playing a tabletop Star Wars game called Star Wars Armada.
Ooh,
And in that
Armada.
game, you control different starships on a tabletop, and you just like,
It's like
you
Warhammer, but Star Wars space battles.
yeah, you blow shit up.
Yeah.
And uh, I I'm a sucker for naval combat, and space combat is just naval combat without the water.
And
So
another dimension of traveling. Yeah.
yeah, so I was just like blown away. I got way too into. I was started doing research, like, oh man, what are all the CIS ships? Recusant class or Providence class, and just getting way too into it.
Mhm.
Mostly because the strategy loving person in me loves that kind of shit. So because of that, I
And you
rewatched
have actual
prequels.
friends, unlike a lot of us,
Well,
that want
because
to
of
play
that,
those kind of games.
I rewatched episode 3 again, which was super good. And then I
Mm.
rewatched because Star Wars has like TV shows, right? They have
Yeah.
animated TV shows. They had a
The
2D
Clone
animated,
Wars, which was one of the big ones.
and then Clone Wars. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember all the rest of them.
The Bad Batch, which is a newer one that just came out. I
But
think there was even a Lego series.
there's a lot of Star Wars content
There's a
out there. There's
lot.
books.
There's
There's
books. Yeah.
different games like ground combat. I don't know. Star Wars is huge. Okay.
Star Wars is
Big
massive.
big Star Wars because we've talked about all of that, and then we haven't even talked about like the Jedi, because they're a huge player in Star Wars.
Yes.
And you got space battles, you got the Republic, you got the Clone Army and the CIS Army, Separatists, and then later on you got the Empire versus the I don't they weren't called the Republic, right? They were just called the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah, the Rebel Alliance.
And then the Jedi in like the Old Republic, where there was a lot of them, and they had their own like cultures and their own lightsaber fighting styles and forms and stuff like that. So
they were treated like samurai.
I almost thought I thought of them as knights.
Well,
which I
yeah,
guess
I mean
makes
they were knights, but it took a
Cultures.
lot from samurai
Yeah, they don't.
and Japanese culture.
They didn't wear armor.
No.
Until the Clone Wars, where they had to.
Right.
Because they were getting shot at a bunch, and then they didn't like.
And even still, most of them didn't wear armor.
They were very focused on like controlling your emotions and being very serene and calm. And then they had a bunch of, they straight up magic, like.
Well, so
force powers.
everything was connected to the Force, which is like an extension of self. And if you learn to control yourself, you could become Force sensitive, and then we're able to like manipulate aspects of reality and such. Like,
Yeah, moving stuff with your mind, or controlling other people's minds, or
Yeah.
shooting lightning from your fingers or whatever.
right.
Throwing
Or,
rocks at people.
Doing a weird mind meld with someone else in order to talk across galaxies for some reason.
Or teleport items to each other, or heal people,
Or create.
bring people back to life.
So, one of the coolest scenes in episode 8, which, again, they were not that good of movies, but when Luke Skywalker, like, astral projects a version of himself onto the battlefield and is just in front of all these ATSTs, that was really, really cool, but it was such a cop-out.
That was Luke's stand. He had been developing his JoJo stand.
Yeah, whatever it was.
And just sent it.
It was such a cool scene because it was just like, oh my god, what is he gonna do? And then it just turns out to be a clone. And then you go back to wherever his little hut was where he drank the blue milk and he just disappears. And it's like, well, that was stupid.
Those movies were
terrible.
kind of a shit show.
Yeah.
All right, so Stick, if you were a Jedi, or I guess not even, if you were a Force user who had a lightsaber, what color would your lightsaber be?
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Because in the movies, they only had blue, green, purple, and red. Those were like the only 4 colors. And Mace Windu, which, funny enough, Samuel L. Jackson requested a purple lightsaber. Like, he did not want to do the role unless if he had a purple lightsaber.
Just because it was cool.
Just because it was cool. So George Lucas was like, yeah, sure, why not? Whatever. But then you've got the extended universe where tons of fans have created all of this extended lore and all these different lightsabers and Jedi and all sorts
Fairly
of stuff.
certain some of it is official material.
Some of it has been made official, yes. So, there is a concept for a lightsaber, and I've always loved this design. It is a white lightsaber
Mm.
but it's just a white aura around a pitch black blade.
Oh, the believe it's the dark saber.
Yeah, like a dark saber. It is
Yeah.
such a cool design, and I love it.
Didn't like Darth Maul use that in one of the TV shows?
Maybe, I don't know. I didn't watch much of the TV shows. I kind of fell out of love with Star Wars for the longest time, when all those TV shows and stuff were happening, because I was in high school and it was kind of not the cool thing to like, and
Gotcha.
and then I was more of a Star Trek kid anyways.
I
Growing
gotcha.
up, Star Wars was like,
we'll
oh,
talk
this
about-
is cool, but I like Star Trek.
We'll talk about
So,
Star Trek in a bit.
yeah.
So my favorite character when I was watching I would say the OG, but like the prequels.
Mhm.
I love the prequels. They were campy and weird, but I love them.
Yeah.
And my favorite character is actually Count Dooku, because he was like, I don't know, there's just a lot of depth to his character.
Yeah, and
I
he was
really
killed too
like-
quickly by Liam
Yeah.
Neeson.
I
Well, not
What?
Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson didn't
No.
kill him. Whoever this.
yeah, Anakin killed him.
No. What?
Anakin killed Count Dooku. He cut his head off. He had 2 lightsabers, and
Oh, he did,
Palpatine
didn't he?
was like,
Who am I
"Damn
thinking
it."
of? Oh, Darth Maul. I'm thinking of Maul.
Darth Maul.
Whoops.
Darth Maul was cool,
Wow.
but not my favorite.
Sorry, Star Wars fans. My bad.
No, so my for the longest time, if ever I was lightsaber like wielder, I would want to be a Jedi Knight, because good guys.
Mhm.
Well, air quote good guys. They have some bad stuff, but overall good guys. And I wanted to use a curved lightsaber like Dooku, but it would be blue.
Oh yeah.
Because the curved lightsaber is better for dueling. But I'd probably get shot because it's bad for deflecting like lasers and crap.
Right. I think if lightsabers actually existed in real life, there would be so many casualties self-inflicted.
That's why you trained with them.
There's
forever-
no way that Benny McGill doesn't cut off his own penis with a lightsaber by accident. Like, I don't even
It's
know.
a little bit random.
But,
All right. So let's talk about Star Trek then, because I
Trekking.
also know a little bit about Star Trek.
all right.
So get this, and it's scary how you described your family. My family was similar, where they were deeply religious, but also we were able to watch Star Trek, but not Star Wars.
Mhm.
Super weird. And I remember growing up watching ye old William Shatner.
Yes.
Oh
God, William Shatner.
And I was a young kid, so I didn't know. Like I saw cool lasers and stuff happening,
Mhm.
and I thought Captain Kirk was the coolest. As an adult, I mean, I still like Captain Kirk, but like, geez, just
Cool,
dude,
those
get a
are
glass of
dated.
water.
Yeah.
Get a glass of water, man. But yeah, no, I watched a decent amount of Star Trek. I went through a Star Trek phase a couple years ago where I was learning all about the different classes of ships, and those movies and TV shows are a lot less interpersonal than Star Wars, it
Hmm.
seems, and they're more focused on like the team.
Yeah.
Like,
It's well, a lot of it is all about relations with different either races or people or whatever.
yeah,
Because
Like-
a lot of it is a political soap opera.
exactly. And it's not. I mean, you've got main characters, obviously, but it's not all about the main characters. It's
Right.
about how they fit into the world.
Right, especially in the
versus-
Shatner era.
Yeah.
Because every time they had an episode or a movie, it was always a different race of people.
Yeah.
It almost played like Doctor Who in a sense that
Just
it was
make a
never
new-
the same cast of characters.
They make a new race, and then they introduce them as either super scary or super friendly.
Right.
And then if they're friendly, they
They
obviously
had
betray
some sort
us.
of issue, yeah.
um,
But
yeah, and
then I was really into The Next Generation. That's the
Yes.
one I liked.
Next Generation was awesome.
Yes. Jean-Luc Picard will always
Mm-hmm.
be the best captain ever. Mainly because the production quality also increased massively during that scenario.
Yeah.
I don't know. I enjoyed those movies, and my dad introduced them to me.
Right. And Sir Patrick Stewart is just an amazing actor
Patrick
as well.
Stewart, I will be really sad when we lose him because he's getting
Mm,
old. Poor guy.
mm.
I'll be
He
really
played
sad.
Poop in the Emoji Movie.
Unfortunately, yes.
But
Um,
no, he was amazing as Captain Picard,
yeah.
and like the the Enterprise in the Next Generation was treated as like this like top dog ship. Like
Yes.
everybody, someone say
Everybody
Enterprise, and
knew
everybody
who that ship
gasps. Like,
was.
oh man.
Yeah.
Um, Partially because the ship itself was so cool, but partially also because they knew like the A team was on the ship.
Correct. Yeah, they were like the head of the fleet. They were because I mean their whole stick was their opening lines were always space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the USS Starship Enterprise,
Mm-hmm.
seeking out new life. And that was the entire thing, is that the show was always seeking out new
Yeah, they were
planets.
exploring stuff.
Yeah, but also creating alliances with these planets or trying to, squash threats. And one of the big contenders of that was that they were never to interfere with the planet itself.
Mm.
Like they couldn't change what was happening on the planet. But then,
Right.
of
It was
course, every single episode was they always changed something. I mean, it's whatever.
And all the red shirts. All the red shirts.
The red shirts.
Oh.
Oh man, there would always be characters that you would only see once. They never got a name, and then they would just die,
And they'd be wearing red shirts.
and they would be wearing
because
a red shirt. Yep,
I think that was the standard uniform.
yep. The only one that
Um,
had a red shirt that never died, I think Scotty had a red shirt.
What Captain Picard wore a red shirt,
Picard,
but that was
it
later.
Yeah, that was much later.
Yeah.
The original uniform for Shatner's time was yellow, and then all the bridge crew I think had
Yellow and
blue.
blue.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yellow, blue, and then red shirts were the
and then the
grunts,
red shirts
and
were the Expendables.
they all died except for Scotty.
Except for Scotty. Yep. Scotty
Scotty
was
was
the
mine.
engineer. He was the only one that had a red shirt and was a consistent character.
Yeah, that guy was
Good
my
old
boy.
Scotty.
Do you have a favorite Star Trek ship
Um,
or class of ship?
class of ship. I mean, okay, I haven't gotten as deep into the lore of Star Trek as I have, but even though they're not the most impressive looking ships, I just like the idea of a planet-sized ship, the Borg.
Oh,
the Borg ships.
I was mostly asking for human ship, but yeah, absolutely the Borg.
Like the Borg. Okay, so for the uninitiated,
Borg
the
too.
Borg. Okay.
Cyborgs.
Yeah, the cyborgs, or the Borgs as they're nicknamed, would basically assimilate any carbon-based life forms that they came across to make them like them and conform and like all that stuff. They're basically like, if you know the Cybermen from Doctor Who, they're basically the same concept.
They'd fly around in these giant cube ships. That
Yeah,
were
they're
the
just
size of
giant
the moon.
cubes.
It's like the Death Star, but cube.
Right, it's just a cube.
It's a cube version.
Yeah, I don't know. The simplicity of their design and their mission was just so cool to me.
I believe my favorite Star Trek ship was
Yeah.
the. I'm probably gonna butcher the name, but like. Boy,
What did you do?
that's gonna scuff the record. Discord crashed on me.
Oh, fun. That's okay. All right, give it a
that
dead
doesn't
space.
matter.
Hang on, give it a dead space and then start over.
Oh, okay. Was that enough dead space?
Yeah.
Okay. Jesus. Shoot, what was I talking about again?
Something about your favorite class of ship.
Oh, my favorite class of Star Wars ship or
Yeah.
Star Trek ship. Crap, I'm scuffing this all up. Now, my favorite class of Star Trek ship was the Defiant, which was like a smaller, like almost like an interceptor.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if it was classified as like an escort or a destroyer, but
It was an
the
escort.
concept was it was like a very tough little ship that could like punch well above its weight class and was super maneuverable. And I think Worf was on one of these at one point, like captain one of these.
Yeah,
Worf was
Worf was the
Worf
captain
was
one.
he was the coolest. Worf was the coolest. When I was, I mean, I guess he's still cool, but like when I was a kid, he was really cool. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, like just the concept of a smaller ship that's punching giant holes in larger ships was really novel to me. That was
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah,
ship
speaking
class.
of ships punching holes in other ships, you remember episode 9 when a ship activated their warp drive
Was
and
that
crashed
9 or
through
8?
destroyers?
I thought that was 8.
No, that was in 9.
Oh,
Remember they discovered the full fleet of Star Destroyers in that hidden planet or whatever it was?
I thought you meant the Haldo maneuver. I thought that's what you were talking about.
Oh, no. Not
A
the
ship
not the one
punching
that he did in like 7.2 parsecs or whatever it was. Which is still stupid because that's not a measurement of time. That's a measurement of distance. How do you do something in a shorter distance than I don't even.
All right, let's rotate away from Star Trek and Star Wars though, because that's like those are. I mean, I guess those would be the mainstream sci-fi stuff.
Right.
Do you play any science fiction games?
Yeah, there's this one called Helldivers.
Let's go.
So
Helldivers never die.
never die. Nah. So there's a lot of sci-fi games. I mean, technically, any game that you play is going to be really a sci-fi game in some aspect. Unless if it's like Power Wash Simulator or something like that.
Fallout has some science fiction stuff in it.
Fallout is sci-fi in sort of a dystopian way.
Yeah.
Dystopian sci-fis are sometimes really cool.
We're currently playing. Technically, you could classify Helldivers as dystopian sci-fi.
Yeah.
We're currently playing through Star Control Origins, which is a science fiction game about humanity trying to not get bodied as soon as we get space flight.
Right.
And then it's kind of a spiritual successor to the original Star Control series, which was a story about humanity joining an alliance and trying to not get enslaved.
Right.
Boy, there's a lot of stories like that. Because now that I'm thinking about it, Armor Command, which I have a playthrough on my channel, go check that out. Don't actually, it's not very good. but like it's an RTS, and it's a story about humanity trying to not get enslaved.
That's a lot of sci-fi games, I feel.
Yeah, like something bad something is out there in space. Yeah. And it's trying to take over human territory and like kill or enslave us, and we have to defend against it.
Right. Well, I mean, like even Half-Life was like that.
Yeah.
One of the original FPSs on PC was like that. Yeah.
Doom was like that. Yeah.
Doom
although the aliens, it was hell, not aliens, but I guess it's kind of similar.
Yeah. I mean, there are tons
strange
of sci-fi
creatures
games.
from a different dimension.
Yeah. Even Portal 2 that we just started a playthrough on, and you're gonna see a video of it tomorrow.
It's a little bit of sci-fi.
Yeah. No, it's very sci-fi.
Got like sentient robots and portal guns and laser. Well, I guess not lasers. They have
the
turrets.
line between what's considered sci-fi and what's not is very fine. Because sci-fi just relates to anything that can be outside of our own reality, technologically speaking. It doesn't even have to be technology in most cases.
Yeah.
In most cases it is, but
in most cases. There's also games like EVE Online that I had a phase where I played way too much EVE Online.
Yeah, you tried to get us to play it at one point, I think.
I look, man, it's
a
game where you can make ships fly around in fleets and take part in big space battles, but a lot of it is just spreadsheet simulator because the logistics of a giant space battle are extensive and not very fun. So
right. And then you have people yelling at you because you're not building optimally and like, ugh.
Yeah, man,
Gross.
Screw doing optimal. Me and a buddy were doing a gate camp one time, or we were trying to do a gate camp. This is just a little anecdote, right?
Uh-huh.
So me and a buddy were gonna go sit on. There's a. I don't want to have to explain all of the little details. Essentially, there's a Stargate where traffic was going through, and it was legal for you to kill other players in that system.
Okay.
So we were sitting.
You were in a PvP zone, and you were covering the gate.
Yeah, we wanted to go sit on the gate as we were approaching. So me and my buddy are in battleships, and as we were approaching, we see a couple of battle cruisers and an interceptor sitting on the gate that we are going to sit on.
Huh.
And instead of going in and fighting them because that's risky, I said, "Hey, nice little gate camp. Do you want to add 2 battleships to it?" And they said, "Yeah, fuck yeah, like let's team up."
Perfect.
So we teamed up. We had this little fleet of 5 large ships and 1 interceptor, and the interceptor would go. In Eve Online, the term is tackle, where you stop a ship from moving. So he would go immobilize ships that were trying to pass us, and then we would
Hmm.
just beam them down with 4 ships.
That sounds
It
really
worked.
rude.
Yeah. There was one guy who kept like dying, and then he would respawn and take a different ship and try to beat us, and then die and respawn, and he got really mad. But it worked really well until we blew up a freighter that belonged to a big corporation.
Oh, and then you got destroyed. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was very upset that he lost all of his cool stuff, so he let his corporation know there was a gate camp, and they
Yep.
sent in a fleet of 10 or so battleships to wipe us out. And that fight went very poor very quickly.
I can imagine.
But it was also, it was also like, I guess in some sense, because they're part of a corporation, they have essentially infinite resources. Whereas we were just being a thorn in their side long enough for them to get annoyed at us. And
Right.
so that in my aspect is a win in and of itself.
Yeah. I mean that makes sense. I don't know. I've not done a lot of like space battling games. The biggest one that I've been a part of was there's a one called Elite Dangerous,
Mm, my
which
brother loves that game.
it's a fun game. It's a very grindy game,
A little bit.
and sci-fi games, especially ones that revolve around like interplanetary travel, it
Mm,
feels like you have to dedicate your life to learning the game and being just in the community at all times. You know?
mm,
It's like it becomes its own little world that you have to be a part of, and it's terrifying.
mm.
Um,
Have you
almost like a
played
cult.
Starfield? Have you
Starfield?
played Starfield yet?
No, I have not played Starfield. I will not play Starfield. Um,
Oh, okay.
I heard that game was absolutely awful. I will
That's
stick to
bad,
my
huh?
Fallout, and I'll stick to my Skyrims.
The other space game that I have a lot of hours in is Space Empires 5, which God, I can't
It's
keep
an RTS,
like
isn't it?
no, it's a turn-based strategy game. It's like
Okay.
Civilization, but it
Oh,
goes
but it's
super
like,
deep. It goes super deep though, because in Civilization you build like a warrior unit,
mhm.
and your warrior unit is like everyone else's, right? In Space Empires, in order to build a ship, you have to design the ship. And so when you do research, you research new components for your ships. And based on what you research, like, maybe I want to research weapons so that my weapons deal more damage, versus a different opponent who researches cloaking so that you just can't find his ships, or somebody who
Ah,
researches engines so their ships are faster.
so it's more
Um,
based around upgrading a single ship rather than like buying new units.
no, no, well, I mean, yes and no, because you upgrade your designs, and then those are the units that you are able to build in
Ah,
the
okay.
strategy game.
Interesting.
So it's very deep. It's easy to sink a crap ton of hours into it. My favorite thing in the game is the fact that you can make carriers. So like
To carry other
carriers
ships.
to carry fighters
Ah,
and just swarm, because fighters are stupid powerful in that game. Just like in real life.
yeah.
Yeah, aircraft kind of rule
Kind
everything
of, kind of
in
OP. We
naval
should nerf
combat.
them. When are we
But
getting the real life patch notes for the military?
yeah, just go play War Thunder.
Yeah.
That's where you get all the
Oh
patch notes.
no.
There's also Nova Drift, which I have an ungodly amount of
Oh
hours in.
man, I feel like Nova Drift would be a fun stream game that we should try
Yes,
sometime.
which we need to
We need to
put
schedule
together.
a stream at some point. We'll
Yeah,
figure that out.
absolutely. Risk of Rain 2 also
Risk of
super
Rain 2
fun.
would be fun. However,
Science
I
fiction.
am not that great at that game.
I'm not very good either. Maybe we get Infamous in here for that one,
Maybe so.
'cause he loves
Um,
that game. Among Us.
would you? Oh no. Did you hear
That's
that they're making a movie?
they're making an Among Us movie.
Among Us movie. Yes.
That's hilarious.
I'm terrified.
We need to we need to go see that.
Oh no.
Oh man, Command and Conquer also has a lot of science. There's so much good science fiction stuff
There's
out
a
there,
ton
man.
of sci-fi. Like anything that is moderately in the future is just
Mm,
sci-fi. I,
mm.
so here's a question: Is Minecraft sci-fi?
Uh,
Would you classify Minecraft as sci-fi?
it's more of I would consider that more to be like just regular fantasy. because you've got dragons and magic and potions and
That's fair.
enchantments. And, like, it almost seems like medieval fantasy, but then with modern. It's as modern as you want it to be.
Sure.
But until they add like I don't know, freaking laser pistols, which a lot of mods do. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't that long ago where you were trying to build a nuclear reactor in Minecraft.
Yeah, I was building a nuclear reactor, some computer systems. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
bad.
but vanilla Minecraft, I feel like, is more just high fantasy,
That's fair. That's fair.
which we should probably make another podcast topic because this one's going kind of long.
Yeah.
I
Well,
how
No, it's
I
not
don't know
going-
how long we've.
We're fine
Maybe-
on time.
Oh, okay, I don't.
We're fine.
I didn't. I don't
So-
keep track of how long we go.
How about one final thing then? So the line between fantasy and sci-fi gets really blurry, especially when you're dealing with either video games or like storytelling.
Here's something that I think would make a good kind of defining line. If the game, if the medium feels the need to explain its supernatural happenings, like, you know, a character can fly, sure, all right, how does he fly? And then if the medium says, well, he's got this jetpack, he's got this super maneuverable jetpack, all right, that's science fiction, because, I mean, we have jetpacks nowadays, but they're not usually very compact or
Right.
good.
Or they're just based on water.
Right. But if the medium is like, oh, he can fly because he's got superpowers. Oh, he can fly because it's magic. Like, if
Okay.
it doesn't feel the need to explain in detail, then that's fantasy.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, you know, somebody like shooting a big fiery blast from an arm cannon. Well, they fired it from an arm cannon that is a weapon that we don't have in real life.
Mhm.
Versus someone chucking a fireball and the medium is like, turd, it's magic.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, magic systems can be explained too, but like science fiction almost has to, it feels the need to
To
be
explain
very
its
granular.
processes. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's technology. It's explicitly portrayed as technology instead of magic.
Sure. Well, there was
I
an
guess if you
interesting.
mix the two.
Yeah. There's an
Then-
interesting there's an interesting quote, and I don't remember who said it, but it goes along the lines of like, magic is magic until explained by science.
Right.
Magic
And
is
until you
magic
can,
until explained by science.
I guess until you can explain in more like using physics instead of, you know, Dungeons and Dragons likes to do like, oh, it's the weave and you're plucking strands of magic from the weave. And
Right.
yeah, all right, dude, that's not really a great explanation for how you can, you know, make
Right.
animated objects or whatever.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who like the I guess, what is it, the
Well, like at
artificer?
one point in ancient
Can
China,
craft.
gunpowder was considered magic.
Hmm.
You
But
know,
then we
and then
learned
nowadays
that
it's like, oh yeah, that's just science. You know, explosive powder.
You know what? Here's another good question. And I know you said one more thing, but this is a good question. In science fiction, the go-to, I guess, like, well, maybe not go-to, but everybody always has like laser plasma-based weapons,
Mm-hmm.
right? My question is, would we ever theoretically get rid of ballistic weapons
I don't believe so.
or small arms?
Purely because in order for laser weapons to work, you have to have a constant light source or enough energy to have a fast traveling photon. Like basically it's just a photon beam, right?
Right.
So you would have to have some sort of accelerator, which right now is large underground facilities in order to accelerate these particles fast enough to actually cause a laser beam, essentially. Like, it's not feasible. Like, there's actually an old
got a
story
super
in the
powerful
90s that where a guy basically had a particle beam slice through his head.
Jesus.
Yeah, and he lived. He lived for quite a while.
But
He couldn't
they're
think
just-
so good no more, but...
Like, lasers are just heat. Like, the type of damage that they would deal would be heat.
Right.
So
They're not very
order
lethal. You would have to train a laser on somebody for like a good few seconds to a minute just
Right,
to do
it
enough
wouldn't be
damage.
any-
Like there's no... I could see it being as a good deterrent, sort of like pepper spray or something like that.
What about plasma weapons? Plasma just being superheated mass that doesn't fall into a solid, liquid, or gas state.
Yeah.
The problem that I see with that would be being able to have, because like
Housing.
if you're gonna shoot plasma at somebody, you have to either have some mass stored at superheated temperatures, which good
Mhm.
luck, or you would have to heat the mass when you fire it, which would take a crap ton of power.
Right.
And there's just not really anything that we have that would be able to do that.
Right.
It's why Star Trek. I'll make fun of it, but like in Star Trek when they're shooting people with phasers, and our phasers are not effective. You know what would be effective? A 12 gauge shotgun.
Exactly.
Like that. Bring a shotgun, shoot that guy. He goes down. I don't care what you say. Like, some
So,
big fleshy
final
creature.
final thing about ballistic weapons. One of the coolest, and I'm so glad the concept actually like nearly exists. Rods from God. That as a sci-fi weapon is so
You-
cool.
You are over. Oh, you know what?
Rods from God is such a
Uh,
neat concept. For the context of it, Rods from God is essentially you take these giant steel beams and they're
Or
sitting
tungsten.
up in a satellite, or tungsten beams, excuse me.
Yeah.
And they're up in a satellite, and you position that satellite over wherever you want, and then you just drop a beam, a couple, 10, 20 yards long. You just drop the beam through the atmosphere. And by the time it reaches the ground, it's at just an explosive velocity that it just annihilates anything in like a few 100 feet radius.
You know what? The closest thing that I can think of for that, there's two items in video games that I can think of that are similar. You got the orbital rail cannon strike from Helldivers,
Helldivers, of course. Yeah.
which is just a railgun mounted on your super destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty similar because
Pretty
it's
similar.
not explosive, but it's
Yeah, I mean,
it
a
fires
railgun is basically just hyper accelerating a
Yeah.
piece of metal. Yeah.
projectile.
Uh-huh.
The other one, which is probably more similar, is the orbital bombardment from Command and Conquer 3, where the projectiles are big bullets. They're not explosive. They're not nuclear. They're not tipped with anything. They're just
a giant piece
pieces
of
metal
yeah.
that are dropped from space and just hit things with enough velocity to where they become explosive.
Yeah, same thing with the
So-
tungsten rods. They're not
Yeah.
explosive or anything. They're just massive metal rods.
Go
that
check
just
out
destroy
Go check out Jethfield's videos on Command and Conquer if you want a more in-depth on the orbital bombardment from Command and Conquer 3.
Yeah. Tungsten
Man,
rods,
we need to
think
talk
about
about-
it.
I don't know how that would be expensive too, getting all that stuff into space.
The government's already trillions of dollars in debt. They can find the
Yes.
money somewhere.
All right. Well, on the note of rods from God, I think that's a good enough place for us
We're
to
gonna
leave
go. I'm gonna go drop a rod. No, wait.
You're gonna...
That's gross. Never mind. Never mind.
Do you
Cool.
think about what you say before you say it?
Sometimes not. No. Alright.
Well, we'll take a break and we'll catch you all with the next podcast next time, which may or may not be some dramatic fan fiction reading.
Oh no. Alright. Bye for now.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.